G'day folks, welcome to the Art of Teaching podcast. Here we talk about how to become more compelling communicators in the way of Jesus. My name is John Tyson, a pastor here in New York City, and I'm joined by John Mark Comer, founder of Practicing the Way, and Jefferson Bethke, author of Take Back Your Family and To Hell with the Hustle. Welcome to Season 1.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Art of Teaching podcast. We like to also answer your questions sometimes in these short mini episodes. And so we have a question from Matt Davis from West Virginia that I'm going to play. I'm going to try to talk about it.
Hi guys, Matt Davis, lead pastor, Bridge Church, Taste Valley, West Virginia. Of all the gaps you are trying to close in your teaching, cultural gaps, sociological gaps, I'm curious to the degree to which you are intentionally trying to close gaps between generations in their understanding of your teaching, kingdom values, and movement going forward. Do you all intentionally seek to close generational gaps in your teaching? If so, why and how? Thanks. Bye.
That's strong. That's strong. Thank you, Matt, for that question, first of all, and thank you for leading and serving in West Virginia as the lead pastor. That's a good one. I think there's a couple angles on that one too. How do you close the gaps generationally? Would you guys consider yourself, when you preach and teach, trying to hit different ages? Talk about that. I'm sure there might not even be some agreement. There might be, I don't know. I think that maybe that's a preference one, but talk about that. Do you feel like we need to? And if you do, how do you do it?
I think the hardest part of preaching is it's one to many. And so it's like the opposite of spiritual direction in that sense. It is a form of discipleship. It is a form of spiritual direction, but it's one to many. And I think the greatest challenge at many levels, more difficult than exegeting the text, more difficult than exegeting the culture, is realizing that different people in that church need to hear different messages at a sense. And based on all sorts of things, from their gender to their introvert-extrovert to their Enneagram type or Myers-Briggs type to their ethnicity to their church background to have they been wounded by the church or wounded by secularism? Are they new convert? Have they been around, for decades? That's, I think, the most difficult task. It's why I think the difference between a good teacher and a great one is nuance, learning to speak to those different types of people in different types of ways. But at the end of the day, you nuance as much as you can, but you can nuance too much, and then a sermon loses its power.
It's like it's kind of dulling the blade a little bit.
Absolutely. And it's like people get lost in the, wait, what exactly? I remember somebody coming up to me after
because you're qualifying
one sermon
so
where I worked
much.
so hard. I think it was on nonviolence. I worked so hard to nuance, and he was like, but what exactly were you saying? And I realized I nuanced too much. Like it wasn't a clear, surrounding
That's
kind
good.
of message. So I think it's hard to do it all the way. And at some point you have to say, and writing has been really helpful for me in this route, because you quickly learn you can't write a book for everyone. You want to, but you can't. And so you don't want to go too narrow, but you can't go too broad.
Yes.
You have to pick this is who I'm writing to. And I think you have to do that with preaching. This, at some level, is who I'm preaching to. And I don't know that I'm the best person to speak to this, just because Portland is so young. Urban contexts tend to be so
It's a very
long.
specific archetype.
Yeah, absolutely. And at a discipleship level, I'm really trying to translate to emerging generations.
Yeah.
So my preaching leans really young in its audience.
Yeah, if that's a part of the calling God's given you, the community that you're serving, I feel like you have to do that.
Yes.
How do you do that? I think it's probably, number one, I think when you acknowledge there's a tension, you remove the majority of the strain. Hey, folks, I want to acknowledge there's different generations in this church, and we've got to find a way to be able to do it. So part of that is a leadership
And some of
issue.
you may think this, and others of you may lean this direction, and
That's super
just
helpful.
like let people know who's in the room and what the challenges are, and then I think it is illustration selection, it is quote selection, it is reference selection, letting people know,
You're thinking of them?
I'm thinking of you. That
Yes.
back, I often joke when I preach now. I say, back in the late 1900s when I was growing up, and
That is technically true and
no, it
weird
is
to say.
No, but like a lot of
The
people,
1900s.
late 1900s.
I was born in the 1900s.
Yeah, late 1900s.
It's a little nod. It's a little wink.
It's just a
It's a
little
little
nod
wink.
that says, "Hey, folks, I'm older,"
Yep.
and then just referencing. You're searching for timeless illustrations, cultural illustrations. You're looking to. The point of illustrating is to create an aha. And if you can create an aha for another generation, I think people feel seen and they feel heard.
Hey everybody, John Mark Comer here with The Art of Teaching. Our heart is very much to see a whole new generation of preachers and teachers raised up for this moment in our culture and around the world. To that end, we have a few offerings for you. We have an annual conference this year. We're going to Nashville, Tennessee, one of my favorite cities in the country, for our kind of major event. Would love to have you there. We're also doing a workshop in Maui, which I cannot wait for. And John Tyson and Jefferson Bethke are doing a great event in Vermont. You can find out more information on these various events and opportunities and offerings at theartofteaching.co.
But again, I do think you got a primary audience. You cannot hit everybody as well. And I'm a big believer, for the most part, preach to where things are headed. Don't preach into the past. Preach to what God is doing. Preach to the struggles that people have, because there's a way of helping them see, hey, you may be a little older and you may feel like this isn't as resonant for you, but I do want you to know that your children will be facing this in college or university. So you sort of act like a guide or a mentor to sort of help them understand the world that is coming along. But if it's primarily, if these are the people God's given you and that's the challenge of your context, you have to do that.
And the internet has flattened everything. So with a lot of the secular ideologies on either side of the culture wars,
is every state,
it's not like
city.
If you're over 50, you're not aware of those ideologies. They might be more assumptions to younger people and conundrums to older people. So you're helping both by kind of doing some contextualization, doing the cultural biopsy, speaking to it. I also think that, tragically, many people have been in American churches for decades and have never really been well taught in a robust kingdom view of the gospel. Like, one of the really sad things I hear a lot is people will come up to me, in particular when I travel, and say, hey, I've been listening to your teaching around discipleship, apprenticeship to Jesus, formation, whatever. I've been a Christian for 20 years, 25 years, 35 years. I have never heard anybody talk about this before.
What a tragedy, mate.
And what I'm talking about is basic stuff. This is what the word disciple means. This is what it means to disciple under Jesus.
Feels rudimentary and elementary to you.
This is how you follow Jesus. Kingdom of God, the gospel of the kingdom. This is basic, cursory reading of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John stuff. People in good, solid Bible churches for 30 years, and this is new information to them. So don't underestimate the power of just preaching discipleship to Jesus.
If I can give a closing thought, Matt, I would say this, and we've all talked about this, and I love that you brought it up early in the conversation, John Mark, about writing. There's a practice I do with every single book I write where I almost call it like a reader's scouting report. So I'm going to write up a one-page document. This is a fake person, by the way. This person is not real. I write up a one-page document. I even go on stock photo websites, try to get an image of what I think they are in my head. And I'll write core fears. I'll write core questions. I'll write their job. I'll write where they went to school, just so I can internalize how much I can genuinely speak to that person. So what I'm saying to you is speak to the core, not to the surface. And then I think at churches, what I say, how this translates with this question is, what I tell people is, I do think churches have more than that. They have more than one person. So where you're at, like in New York, you could probably say, okay, I got a married couple right here on my scouting report. I want to fill that out. I got a 52-year-old banker. You know what I mean? Morgan Stanley or something like that right here. So make 3, 4, 5 of those.
Eugene Peterson used to do this. He used to preach with 4 names or photographs of people from his real church.
And your guys'
otherwise, what
context
happens, you're in West Virginia, you're podcasting John Tyson, who's amazing, and all of a sudden you're answering questions that nobody's asking in your context. You're not speaking to your church anymore.
Keller was in West Virginia.
Yeah, so core needs, core questions, core fears, core problems, core things. And I think write that down, look at that, saturate in that, and especially, with a couple different archetypes or avatars in your church, I think you'll be able to serve them a little bit better. One
last thought here is this. It's about the role of love outside the pulpit. People will give you grace if your preaching is not hitting, if you're loving them as a pastor during the week.
If they feel understood and seen.
And if they feel like they're valued as a part of the community, I think they'll give you more grace in your preaching.
Amen.